Sagittarius is fire, movement, expansion, and raw honesty. But behind their enthusiasm, their laughter, and their philosophical glow, there lies a very unique kind of ego, one that doesn't dominate, manipulate, or seek control in obvious ways. Instead, it hides behind truth, freedom, and the irresistible desire to explore both the world and the human spirit. It is not the loud ego of someone who wants to rule. It is not the rigid ego of someone who demands obedience. It is a quiet, burning certainty, the unshakable belief that they have seen something others haven't yet discovered. Sagittarius doesn't scream their truth. They affirm it. They don't pressure people. They convince them. They rarely doubt, but they also don't always listen when they believe they're right. Sagittarius wants to liberate everyone. But sometimes they try to free people using a truth that only belongs to them. They want to expand your world, but they often do it through their own map, their own vision, their own spiritual compass. And this is where their most fascinating shadow is born, the adventurous ego of Sagittarius, the belief that their truth is the only one that leads to freedom. The ego of absolute truth, when Sagittarius believes they see farther than everyone else. Every Sagittarius is, in essence, a seeker. They chase truth the way fire chases oxygen, restlessly, passionately, and with a kind of spiritual hunger that never stops growing. So when they feel they've found a truth, whether for a moment or a lifetime, they experience something almost sacred, a certainty that lights up their entire inner world. And once they get that clarity, they feel an almost moral obligation to share it. They don't do it with arrogance or dominance. They do it with spontaneity, like saying, "This is how it is. Trust me." Their ego shows up in the way they teach without being asked, how every conversation becomes a reflection, a small philosophical sermon, or an unexpected life lesson. But here's the thing Sagittarius often fails to see. Their truth, wide, spiritual, colorful as it is not the only one. Their urge to enlighten can overshadow other perspectives, especially ones that don't fit into their mental universe. They think they're lighting up your path, but sometimes they're just replacing your horizon with theirs. And because Sagittarius is so proud of their brutal honesty, they don't always consider emotional impact. For them, truth is always a higher good. But honesty without softness can become a blade, and Sagittarius sometimes cuts without noticing, wounding while trying to save. The explorer's ego, when Sagittarius expects everyone to move at their speed. Sagittarius is movement incarnate, a restless, vibrant, unstoppable force. Their soul is a map full of routes, questions, philosophies, and horizons that have no end. They are fueled by growth, expansion, change, risk, and discovery. So when Sagittarius moves forward, they expect, often unconsciously, that everyone around them will also move. This is where their ego quietly emerges. They assume their pace of growth should be the universal minimum. When someone around them needs more time, or prefers stability, or processes life slowly, Sagittarius feels impatience rising in their chest. To them, stopping is not a pause, it is a kind of death. Stagnation equals the loss of meaning, the fading of fire. So when people hesitate, don't change, or don't leap into the unknown, Sagittarius interprets it as fear, lack of vision, or lack of ambition. And then they begin to push. They call it encouragement. Others may feel it as pressure, judgment, or invalidation. For more grounded or sensitive signs, Sagittarius can feel like a hurricane, arriving suddenly, rearranging everything, insisting the world should be bigger than you think. But the truth is, not everyone wants to fly so high, so fast, so far. Some people grow in stillness. Some evolve through routine, reflection, or stability. And that kind of growth is just as meaningful. Deep within, Sagittarius pushes others not only to help them, but also to confirm their own pace. If everyone grows like they do, then their speed makes sense. Then they're not running from something, they're evolving. Their ego doesn't seek followers, it seeks reassurance. The ego of excessive optimism, when Sagittarius refuses to accept that something is wrong. Optimism is the Sagittarian superpower. They can find light in places where others see only darkness. Their hope burns like an eternal flame, fed by faith, philosophy, humor, and an inner compass that always points toward possibility. But when this optimism mixes with ego, something dangerous happens. They deny vulnerability, both theirs and others. Sagittarius clings to phrases like, "Everything has a solution. This will pass. You can do it. There's always a reason." And yes, those words can save someone on a bad day, but not when they're used to override real emotions. Sagittarius often believes their positive worldview is not just helpful, it's correct. And when someone feels deeply, cries intensely, or moves through grief slowly, Sagittarians can think that person is simply interpreting life the wrong way. For them, healing comes from movement, change, experience, and new horizons. So when someone chooses to sit with pain, Sagittarius feels as if that person is giving up. But here's the truth they often forget. Not everyone heals through adventure. Not everyone recovers with action or transformation. Some heal by breaking first, by staying, feeling, allowing. When Sagittarius pushes optimism onto others, they may invalidate emotions without intending to, as if saying, "Your way of feeling is wrong. Feel like I do." And that kind of optimism, instead of healing, can become a wall. The philosopher's ego. When Sagittarius believes their ideas carry special weight. Sagittarius is a natural thinker, a seeker of meaning, a collector of ideas, a builder of theories. Their mind is like a spiritual laboratory, constantly mixing experiences, emotions, beliefs, discoveries, and existential questions. When they speak, their intellectual fire is electrifying. You feel like you're listening to someone who has truly understood something essential about life. But this is where one of their most subtle egos hides. The unspoken belief that their perspective isn't just valid, but superior. When Sagittarius enters philosopher mode, they unconsciously adopt the role of a teacher. Their tone, their posture, even their eyes say, "I know something you haven't discovered yet." This can be inspiring. It can illuminate. It can motivate. But it can also overwhelm, intimidate, or exhaust the person who wasn't seeking a spiritual lecture, just a conversation. And when someone dares to challenge their ideas, Sagittarius doesn't take it lightly. They don't see it as an exchange of viewpoints. They feel it as a threat. Because their beliefs aren't just opinions. They are truths forged through fire. Experiences, wounds, travels, epiphanies. So questioning those truths feels like questioning their identity. They may respond with sarcasm, intensity, or impatience. But deep down, Sagittarius simply wants to be understood. They want people to see life with the same color, curiosity, and philosophy that they do. When that doesn't happen, their ego hurts, not out of pride, but out of longing. The lesson for Sagittarius is learning that wisdom is not only found in speaking, but in letting others have their own truths too. The ego of freedom, when Sagittarius believes no one has the right to limit their path. Freedom is sacred to Sagittarius. It is their air, their fire, their heartbeat. Freedom to move, to decide, to change, to reinvent, to explore without borders. This devotion to freedom is so intense that it becomes one of the strongest egos of the zodiac. The belief that any limit is an offense, any commitment a threat, any responsibility a chain. This ego awakens the very instant Sagittarius feels that someone is guiding them, correcting them, asking for stability, or suggesting a shared path. They react with distance, sarcasm, or emotional withdrawal. Even if the person means well, Sagittarius feels invaded, and when they feel their freedom is touched, their ego becomes a wall of fire. They may say or do hurtful things, not because they want to hurt, but because they are protecting their independence at all costs. What's ironic? Sagittarius does crave deep relationships. They want to love, belong, build, grow together, but they want to do it in their own way, with space to breathe and horizons that remain open. Their ego whispers, "This is how love should be," when in reality, it's simply their personal way of loving. The healing begins when Sagittarius understands something beautifully simple, yet deeply challenging. Shared freedom is also freedom. Love doesn't suffocate when boundaries are healthy. Independence isn't lost when the heart allows room for others. When Sagittarius learns to listen, pause, and walk alongside someone without pushing, their fire becomes something extraordinary. A light that guides, not a flame that burns. They discover that they can continue growing without forcing others to grow too. They can dream without needing others to dream the same. They can explore without requiring anyone to follow. And suddenly, their fire shifts from impulse to illumination, a flame that inspires, not dominates. A flame that accompanies without overwhelming. A flame that opens paths without closing doors. And so the question remains, has a Sagittarius ever pushed you to move when all you needed was peace? Or are you a Sagittarius who recognizes yourself in this fire that wants to help but sometimes burns?